Hello, everybody. This is JJ Hardy with Victory Leadership Coaching, and this is another episode of Leadership Chat with Chris and JJ. Today, we're going to talk about prioritizing and taking action, and basically why those things are important with a little bit of strategy. And as always, we have Chris Pinkowski here with Straight Arrow Coaching. Chris, hello. How you been, man?
Great, JJ. How you doing?
Man, I always say it, so I'm not going to repeat what I always say, but God is good. That's what I'll say.
There you go. It's this topic, I think today is like very timely, right? It's the last Friday of the year, last working day of the year for a lot of people. And if you've done your annual planning going into 2024 and you're ready to go, a lot of people get hung up on the prioritization. So I think that the timing of what we're talking about today could really help some people and kind of get them focused in the right direction and kind of minimize that paralysis by analysis that I think prevents the action from happening.
Right. Well, and I completely agree with you. Ultimately, out of the combination of topics that we're talking about, I think the most important part of all of it is to take action and learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
You're not going to succeed on the first try with everything that you do. And so everyone needs to understand that you got to go out there and fail forward. Go out there and do what you got to do, figure out what you're doing wrong, and course correct and do it again.
I agree. And, you use the word right there, fail. And that is also an acronym. The acronym of FAIL is first attempt in learning. So, yeah, when we fail forward, you're learning what you did that led you to kind of bite the dust, for lack of a better word. And then when you get up and you brush yourself off, it gives you context for what should I not do again to prevent that. So first attempt in learning, fail forward so that you learn from it and you continue to move on.
And, let's bring up the word. Well, we put prioritize and take action, but let's just talk about the word priority here for a second.
Mm-hmm.
If everyone's priority is themselves, their family, making their team successful, then, I agree. The analysis paralysis is going to get you. But the thing that you have to keep in the forethought of your mind is all a priority is something that is super actionable to do right away. Don't get hung up on, well, I need to do this, and I need to do this to do this, and I need to do that to do the other thing, and going down the rabbit hole of what the heck, and all that other stuff. Really what they need to understand, everybody, including ourselves, because we fall into the same trap, we're human, is that all a priority is that first thing that you need to do to take action. And it doesn't have to be what you think it is. It can be anything.
You're
Just
right.
go out there and freaking do it.
No, that's it. I mean, wasn't that the slogan of Nike for years? Like,
Yes.
Just do it.
Do it.
Yeah, like that's where people get hung up. And they look at their goals for the year or even their goals for the first quarter of the year. And they're like, oh shit, that is big. Where do I start? How am I going to get there? And then they don't prioritize. They're just like, all right, run towards March. That's the end of Q1. And I just want to start like knocking down pins. But you do have to know kind of sequentially what steps to take. But the first step is taking a step. It's actually acting on something. And that's when you can break that cycle of like, I don't know where to start, so therefore I'm just going to scattershot. I tell people all the time, when you focus on everything, you focus on nothing. So, and another analogy is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yep.
So, all right, let's figure out where we're going to start taking some bites, and let's sink our teeth in and then move on to the next and the next and the next.
You're right. And that ripple effect will actually change your priorities.
Yes.
So planning is important in that it gives you a clear idea of a route that you want to go. The priority is whatever the first step is, but understanding that if you try to tackle too many things at one time, you're right. You're going to be tackling nothing because, pardon my language, but this is the only way I know how to say it. You're going to be half-assing everything if you try to bite off more than you can chew.
That's right.
And so really what you need to do, and I'm not telling you what to do in saying this, anybody who's listening, but the idea on how to proceed forward is just to look at those things that aren't going to be overwhelming and tackle those things first, because you're going to be more successful. Crawl, walk, run if it's a new idea, and that way when you get to the more complicated things, you've already figured out a lot along the way.
That's right. And yeah, I'm a big fan of, if I'm doing anything, I'm doing it full ass, right? There's no half ass about it, because I'm going to go hard. I'm going to succeed big. I'm going to fail big. I'm going to learn from it, but it's whole ass or nothing.
That's a whole lot of ass. Okay. Okay. No, but it's good. You have to have that sort of intensity. There are a lot of people who are taking on a team for the first time, and they get caught in that analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
Well, really all those teams need is for you to show up. It's the same thing if you're a business owner and you're trying to start a business where it's required that you have a team. First, you need to show up. You need to get to know everybody. You need to start taking small chunks so that when you get to the big actions, it's not so difficult because people understand what they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
That's kind of a little off where we started, but a lot of the people that we're talking to, they have these teams and they're constantly blocked. They don't have the training to be able to handle it in the first place, but then they get into it and they need to start making the priorities and task schedule for all of these people.
Yeah.
But they don't have a relationship with them. So do that first, and then all the tasks will just come because you've already created that level of influence that you need to build it. By the way, use your teams. Yes. Don't do it alone. I'm gonna tell everybody on here a secret that I don't know if Chris wanted to get out or not, but we kind of went over our annual planning together because as private business owners, why the heck would we do it alone?
Right.
If we don't have to. We do that because we both trust each other enough to be able to talk about these important things to go forward and get a fresh perspective. So use your people.
Absolutely.
You're not alone.
Every resource at your disposal, put it to use.
Yes.
And the other thing too is when you're leading a team, you cannot be the smartest person in the room.
Nope.
You have to rely on the people that are actually going to be doing the work. So you may lay out the strategic priority, you may lay out the goals, but it really comes back to talking to your team and saying, okay, everybody, this is where we want to be. This is what, in my opinion, we need to be doing, step 1, 2, 3, yada, yada. But from your perspective, boots on the ground, what do we need to do? Because you know more than I do on the front lines. So take advantage of your team. Sorry, take advantage in the way that you're all going to succeed, right? I'm not saying what I'm saying. It's not a nefarious way of taking advantage, but
use your resources.
Yes.
Use your resources. They are. You need to trust your team, and they will pay you back in dividends.
That's right.
All you're doing, and what you're saying right now, is you're enabling your team to give their opinion. Right. And how many people in leadership positions just shove things down their team's throat and don't ask for their opinion ever? Well, that is what you're saying, and I wanted to make sure I corrected that so that everybody understood that didn't.
That's exactly what I was saying. And the byproduct of that is that your team buys in because now you've empowered them to provide their opinions, provide their input. They're going to buy into your vision, and they're also going to feel a greater sense of ownership and accountability for getting it done. Because guess what? You're allowing them to execute on their ideas. So they don't want to be proven wrong. They want to be successful. So, so many benefits to having your team be part of what's going on.
Yeah. Plus, you learn a new skill.
Yeah.
Not everybody is a planner. Right. And then if you take it one step further, not everybody has the skills that it takes to be the facilitator of a planning session.
Yes.
It's a skill. And if you don't understand how to do it and you don't have any structure while you're doing it, just go out there and give it a shot. By the way, if you show that vulnerability to your team and say, hey, let's do this together. I don't know if my opinion is good enough. This is what I think we should do. But what do you think? Mm-hmm. And it's messy, but you receive their feedback and you guys come up with a solution together. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you trusted them by telling them that you're not always perfect.
Yeah.
And in return, they're going to be like, well, if he was struggling with this, then I guess my opinion's not going to hurt. So they're going to put their stuff out there to you.
Right. Yeah. And that's, so that's the first part of the equation is prioritizing. All right. What do we need to do? Sometimes that can be overwhelming to people. And they're like, all right, now I've got this list of things that I need to take in order. Now, the second part of the equation is take action, right? Yep. And that is where sometimes people also get hung up because they don't know exactly what that action looks like. So when you're in a situation working with a leader, working with a team, and you've come up with the steps, how do you make the transition to now let's turn this into action? What do we need to do first?
Well, oftentimes I follow the same methodology that you just got done mentioning. Is I get everybody together and say these are the things that need to be done, and I kind of try to get people to volunteer for helping me with that, especially if I'm a manager of managers.
Yep.
And once they take ownership of that, the people that did, they're gonna execute those because they decided they were going to go ahead and do it before you even said, hey, I need you to do this. You didn't have to say that to them. Right. They said, I will do this. So then the next thing you need to worry about are those people that you had to divvy the tasks out to that kind of either they did this or maybe they didn't say anything at all, and release everybody that took their tasks and talk to those people that, they weren't sure what they wanted to do and have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
Now, if it's just you, well, let's bring up some things that your team was probably thinking, but you might also be thinking when it comes time to take those action steps. So there's something called imposter syndrome, and that's where it just seems so daunting to move forward with something that either you think that you're not good enough or it's going to be too hard. You never know unless you try. So that's one. And then another thing is that people they get overwhelmed, and it's not really clear why you're getting overwhelmed. But if you're having that issue, you got to talk to somebody about it, because somebody that's done it. We had a conversation a few weeks back where we talked about the difference between a teacher, a coach, and a mentor.
Yep.
This is why it's important to have a mentor or a coach in your pocket, because if you have somebody that's been there and done that can talk you through the difficult situations and you trust them, then that will help you get over that overwhelm, that imposter syndrome. And you'll be much more likely to take action on your own than you would have if you just would have sat there and dwelled on those problems by yourself. That's what's worked for me in the past. Chris, what about you?
Yeah. The one thing that I always kind of fall back on in those situations is when I feel overwhelmed, or if I recognize someone on my team is feeling overwhelmed, I always say, stop and take a breath. Like, pause, let's get out of our own heads. And that works in so many instances. For me, it's like, it comes to me through jujitsu, because if I've got a 250-pound dude who's on my chest, the best thing for me to do is to stop, breathe, and assess the situation. Because if I don't, I'm going to lose my breath, because that guy's just going to crush me, and then he's going to submit me, and I'm going to lose the match. And that applies to everything else in life. Like, all right, you're feeling overwhelmed, just stop for a second. Take a deep breath. Kind of look around, see what's going on, bring your heart rate down, and let's figure out the one next thing that we need to do. And I like to just always break things down into the smallest next step. That can really help. If the action plan has 12 items on it and we're trying to figure out what's first, well, the first thing to do is just put them in order. That's the first thing. Very simple. Just put them in logical order. But the overwhelm prevents people from taking action. It also prevents people from prioritizing. And the best thing you can do is just stop yourself. It takes practice, right? That's a habit. That's a behavior that you need to figure out some internal triggers that make you say, stop, take a breath. But it's the best course of action, because you're interrupting that flow of just like, your mind's going 100 miles an hour. No, just stop. Mm-hmm. Boom. Works 99 out of 100 times.
Yep. I had similar conversations with my teams back in the day. That's why I would send the other people off and keep those people there, is I would have to tell everybody, get out of your head, get out of your emotions, think about what's going on, and let's talk about why you didn't raise your hand. Right. Is there a reason why these tasks just feel too hard? Are you too busy to take action? And sometimes what I would end up doing is just assigning multiple things to a person, rather than giving those people that might have too much on their plate already an additional thing. There are lots of things that play into a situation like that. And so you as a leader need to understand that with your people. And sometimes the overwhelm doesn't come from a task being too daunting. They might just be overwhelmed in general. And it's not even the task. It's the fact that they have A, B, C, and D that they have to do. And it could be the same way with you. That's why the prioritizing is important. Making sure, because it doesn't matter what the plan looks like. It doesn't. Plans get screwed up along the way. It's the nature of a plan. Right. So understanding that first is probably the most important thing. But when you're prioritizing, it can be anything on your list. Just, figure out something that you can do first. And the reason that I say the most actionable thing, that's why I said at the beginning of this live stream, is because if it seems actionable, that means it seems doable. And if it seems doable, you will probably do it. Yeah. Let's break it. Let's just go ahead and play out on the KISS acronym there. You got to keep it simple, stupid.
That's
right.
Do
the simple stuff first. I'll be honest with you. If you have 10 things on your list of things to do to accomplish a goal, it doesn't matter what order they get accomplished in, 9 times out of 10.
Right.
You just got to figure out where to start. But it's good to understand the 10 items, but you just got to get started. But the priority is whatever you can do right then.
What I like about the, identify and start with the kind of simple things first is that you're building up some early wins. And the psychology behind those early wins is what keeps you going when the tasks do get a little more complicated, more involved. You've got the wind at your back from those early wins. So that helps you to just push through and like, all right, I'm 2/3 of the way through this. I knew it was going to be a little tough, but look at all these victories behind me. I can just keep on pushing forward.
And let's be honest, I'm in my mid-40s. I'm not even sure how old Chris is, but I've had tons of stuff that I've had to do. But even in the heat of battle and stuff like that, nothing is really that hard if you just take action, and you won't know until you get there anyway.
That's right.
So find the easy stuff, but people just do it.
That's right.
Nike, once again.
So how do you identify what's a priority and what isn't? I think a lot of people struggle with this. And it comes back to something that we said earlier. When you focus on everything, you focus on nothing. And people do have a hard time distinguishing priority versus not priority.
Yeah. So, there are a couple different ways, in my opinion, that you can look at this. One, you can look at it in the way that we just got done talking about it. The thing that you can do, you can just do. However, what in your life is important to you? Really, the other one is going to be different for everybody. What is important to you? If you have to go out and get your driver's license, is getting your driver's time in right now the most important thing to you, or is getting your little assignments done during driver's ed the most important thing to you? That is going to be different for everybody. So when you're trying to figure out what the priority is what is the most important thing to you, and can you do it? If it meets both of those criteria, then knock it out.
Yep.
What do you think?
I'm the kind of person who I'm always looking at the end goal, and I'm reverse engineering my steps, right? So from that perspective, when I look at priorities versus not priorities, it's tied to that end goal. And let's use that same example of getting your driver's license. My oldest son has been driving for almost 2 years now. But for him, it was, okay, first I've got to pass the permit exam. Once you pass the permit exam, then in Pennsylvania, at least, you've got to rack up, it was like 100 and some hours of driving while you have a permit, and it has to be so many hours in the dark, in the rain, the list goes on. Mm-hmm. So then it was like, all right, let's prioritize just racking up those hours before you take your driver's exam. And you're not getting a car until you have a driver's license. And so, but the end goal was being able to drive and have freedom. So it is. And so what wouldn't have been a priority would have been, hey, I want to go, instead of doing my driving this weekend, I'm going to go hang out with my buddies and go on a camping trip. Sounds like a lot of fun. It's not moving you towards your end goal. It shouldn't be a priority. So where does it fit in the grand scheme of things?
That's true. And, it's what's interesting about making an execution schedule, which is basically what we're talking about here, is that you have to find balance. Because if you just hammer, you're not going to get it done because you're going to burn yourself out. Yes. But if I like that you use that as an example, because you have to take action, but you have to also understand what your limitations are, and sometimes take a step back and do a little bit of maybe I don't really know what the word is. You have to have the emotional intelligence to be able to look at yourself and figure out when you're doing too much, because if you're doing too much, that means you're probably not learning anything along the way. You're probably not doing the best that you can do, and all of those other things. When you get burnt out, everything just seems like it's daunting. And honestly speaking, if we're talking about that, even though that was the most important thing at that time, it might not be the most important thing. There's nothing wrong if you're burnt out, especially in the example that you just gave, to moving along to something else, knowing that you had this many hours, and starting something else, getting it done, and then coming back and finishing the other thing.
Yes.
But you have to track your progress. If you do that, it's kind of a slippery slope. I don't recommend, when I'm doing my coaching, I don't really recommend that to too many people, but it's important to understand your burnout. So if I come up on a coaching session and somebody tells me that they're getting burnout, I will bring that up. Well, what about it is causing problems? And then we work through that. But I like that you brought up the camping example, because at that point in time, that might have been something that would have brought him back to zero, so he could go back and execute better the next week.
Yeah. And, sometimes we're taking action and we have our priority list, but if we're just in this rote stage of just like, all right, get it done. Like you said, are you really learning? And when you're kind of in that automatic mindset, there's a potential for you to miss things that if you were a little more intentional, you could have caught, learned from, could have done something to shave some time off of your end time, whatever. So it is that intentionality of your actions that really help you to achieve those goals in the most meaningful way. But paying attention to the burnout is also very important. That's why companies, good companies who offer time off, tell their people, like, when it's time off, you're not answering emails, you're not on call. Like, I've had jobs where it's been, oh, you're on vacation, great, enjoy your time with your family, but you're still on call. So if you get a call from us, you better answer your phone. You better take your BlackBerry. Back in the day when there were Blackberries, you better take your damn BlackBerry to the beach with you. And that's
my whole military career. I don't know if I did have time off, but I don't know if that time off was ever spent. I was always like, hey, I got to make sure my, what's that thing called when you can connect to a work network, a VPN. I got to make sure my VPN is working so that when we go on vacation, if something comes up, I can still take care of it. Oh my gosh. One of the many blessings about being out of the military. There's nothing wrong with the military, but man, when you're that guy at the top of the food chain that's the subject matter expert, you don't really get time off. So that was something that I don't miss.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got to take time for yourself. You, not to mention, if you have a family, you have to take time for your family. All of those things, especially this time of year, it's all over the TV. It's all over the radio and every song and TV show that you're watching these days. And then they preach about it on commercials and the whole 9 yards. Make sure that priorities are important and you're giving your family a space on that priority list.
That's right.
Always. By the way, they should always be up here while you're going like this, ebbing and flowing with all the other crap that you have going on.
Mm-hmm.
I had to mention that, Chris, because, I spent too many years where I felt like I was making my family a priority, but were they really? Probably not. And it was by design, because I had a job that required my time all the time. And gosh, if you're a military leader listening to this, don't do that to your damn people. They don't deserve it. They deserve to have a quality of life, and their families deserve to have them present. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I can say that because I have the RET behind my name.
Yes. But you're absolutely right. And I know for me as well, I mean, building a career in the civilian world, same thing. My thought of my family's my priority. You can become very turned around because it's like, no, I'm building a career for my family, right? I'm making money to pay the bills for my family. So you can always kind of justify, but it's wrong. I mean, just flat out, it's wrong.
Yeah.
The family should be here, and then all the other priorities are below it.
You should be working to live, not living to work.
Correct.
Oof. Don't burn yourself out. By the way, anybody that's listening that's an aspiring entrepreneur, you better get that through your head before you even push the go button, because it's a bumpy doggone ride. I'll tell you that much right now.
It is. And the last thing I'll say on the topic, because I know we're at about a minute over our time, is while you're prioritizing your tasks, you're prioritizing your goals and your action steps, it is important to prioritize your health, your mental health, your physical health, the needs of your family. They can't be overseen in your kind of role of going after business goals. You've got to balance. JJ, you said the word balance earlier, and that is probably the most important thing that we're going to talk about today, is the importance of balance when it comes to priorities.
Agreed. And so prioritize your crap, take action, keep you and your family in mind always. And that's pretty much all I got to say about that. Just like we always do, every week, I'm going to ask you if you have any closing comments, Chris.
My only closing comments are, I hope everyone's got 2024 mapped out to an extent. You know where you're going. You're not going into the year blind, kind of by the seat of your pants, and prioritize what you're going to get done in the first quarter to achieve those goals by the end of the year.
Absolutely. And if you like all of the jaw flapping that Chris and I do every other week, then you got to make sure you like this video.
Yes.
You repost this video or share it, depending on which platform you're on. Subscribe if you're on YouTube. Whatever, thumbs up. I don't care what you do, but if you like it, you got to pass the word, and you got to make sure that people are hearing this stuff. Because if you enjoy it and you need it, then chances are somebody else does too. And you got to raise awareness when something hits you in the heart like that. Otherwise, it's not going to get around.
Yep.
Otherwise, yeah. Thank you for talking about this with me today, Chris, and thank you, audience. I'm pretty sure that's Hannah who's been watching this entire time, and if it is, hello. This is JJ Hardy and Chris Pinkowski. We're signing off for the day. Happy holidays. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. We will see you in January.
Hooah.